Hey guys, welcome back to the Off the Script podcast. This time with a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Hymsuen, and I guess online coach, competitive bodybuilder, and also competitive powerlifter. Actually, yeah, probably better powerlifter than I am
Yeah,
bodybuilder, but um,
I
yeah,
mean,
that was a long time ago.
yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, one thing I've noticed in terms of having watched you over the past year is that translates very much into a lot of your training. Like,
Yeah, for
your
sure.
ability on certain movements is just like what? It's sort of a bit bonkers. Like, I remember seeing you, I think, like a year ago, and it was a set of you doing like hack squat or something.
Mm.
That was the first sort of time I like clocked you on social media, and I was like, huh, that guy's got absolutely huge legs, and he's like actually very strong.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
go hand
ha- hacks I never like machine stuff I never really used to do that
in.
often. Like I was always a big like squatter. I was always doing squats, deadlifts, obviously for powerlifting. And it was only later I was like started doing hacks a little bit more. Um, and I my legs have really actually grown a lot more since moving into hacks. I feel like I've lost a little bit of glute from not squatting, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
you know,
I find
uh,
as well actually, and I've been rinsing hacks for the past probably year. And because I was using the old Cybex hack, like version 1 Cybex hack at my old gym, and now
that
this,
was in Birmingham, right? Well, what's
yeah,
that? Ultimate Fitness.
yeah, Ultimate Fitness, they have the old school Cybex, which is hands down probably my favorite machine for legs I've ever used. uh,
Mm.
but Ultraflex, where I've just moved, they've also got a V2 hack by Cybex, and that is very similar, just a bit more brutal
Do
on
you find it heavier?
I find it heavier, man.
Same. I
Yeah,
find it that I don't know what it is. It's not like heavier by that much, but just a tiny bit. I don't know whether
I
it's
think it
not as
might be.
smooth. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because I 100% think the new one that like I'm using now is a lot smoother because it's just brand new. It's a brand new piece of kit, pretty much.
Yeah,
But I maybe it's the angle of like the foot plate, like the angle of the feet, or maybe it's like maybe 5 degrees like more steep than.
yeah,
But oh my god, I used that. I think, but yeah, my first session like just over a month ago on legs Ultraflex, which was just after they got it. I used it. I was like, holy shit, I'm not moving anywhere near the way I was moving before. So I've like since stripped it back, and I'm working my way back up at the minute. So yeah.
yeah. I like it. I think the only graph, like the only thing I have with it is I wish their handles were kind of like the pre-core ones, where they kind of come down here.
Yeah,
It's just a little bit short, and I'm like, ah,
I don't know if you've noticed, but in some videos of me hacking or doing hack, whenever it gets to the latter half of the set and it gets a bit like difficult, a bit dicey in terms of set and form starts to break down a bit. My hands just come off the handles first. That's the first thing that happens.
mm,
I think it's entirely down to being up there. That position is just anatomically just doesn't feel good for me. Like I'm
yeah,
quite a wide person. I'm not exactly the most flexible in the upper body either, uh,
yeah.
especially like through like my like tricep and stuff like that. So I always feel a need to have something like that, like more forward, so I can relate.
Yeah, I think it's more to do with just the ability to stabilize your upper back as well.
Mm.
So pulling your shoulder blades together and whatnot, and just being in this position is more like it's more comfortable for you to engage your lats, right? But yeah, I don't know if you saw Sebum do. He did. I think he did
Oh
eight
my
plates or
god!
something right yesterday or something.
Yeah, I
Man,
saw that.
guy's strong.
He has always been like a very strong guy, and like somewhat I've always looked to him weirdly as like a strength goal, like aspirationally. Like I remember like for the past year or two seeing him deadlift, seeing him
Mm,
squat, seeing him do a lot of these basic like movements, and sort of bizarrely being like, actually, that's a great role model for that sort of stuff, as opposed to, I don't know, a Larry Wheels character who's insanely strong as well.
yeah,
Um, so it always intrigues me when I see someone with such a quote unquote pretty physique moving like poundage, like heavy loads like that. So
yeah, he's been hanging around with Ian Valier too much, man.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Soon he'll be benching 5 plates as well.
Yeah, he's got a phenomenal physique though. I always think like those bigger guys are just built for deadlifts, man. Like they.
Yeah. Oh, have I lost you? You might have dropped out. We'll wait a second, folks, until Hymsuen is back on. We're frozen on his face right now. He's got a great smile. But yeah, no, for the viewers at home, I think having
Am I back?
We're back. Yeah, we dropped out for a second.
I could see and hear you, you know.
Oh, it's because I'm hosting. Yeah, I always find it interesting just seeing that. As like someone myself who is a taller guy with a bigger frame. Like I'm 6'1", quite tall guy, and of course structurally I'm nowhere near someone like Chris or probably even Ian. But
are you really 6'1"?
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm so short.
I might have shrunk half an inch, to be fair, in the past year or so. Last time I measured, I was like 185, 186. I
think, you know, when you stand next to someone, because obviously I saw you like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just like your eye level or whatever. I didn't feel like you were that much taller than me, but when you say it in the metrics,
yeah,
I'm like half your height.
That's the same though. Like, I always think this when I see pictures of people on Instagram, right? I always have it in my head that I don't know why, like Instagram sets the expectation of everyone basically being the same height.
Yes, definitely.
So I always think of people being my height and being at eye level, which is quite, because then I go to a show or something, I'm like, oh, what the fuck? They're like half a foot taller than me or half a foot shorter than me. So yeah, I can get that. It's a bit of a mind fuck. Yeah, I think Chris is like 6'2", something like that. So he's a little bit taller than me. But yeah, I always look at those people as being pretty inspirational in terms of strength, because of course I can actually relate to having to like move that for that lockout distance and stuff like that, especially on deadlifts and stuff like that.
How tall is Keefe? I think he's about AJ's height, right?
Yeah, he's not too tall. But he has the added.
He looks tall though.
He looks quite tall, but he also looks like he's as wide as he is tall. Such a fucking unit.
He's an animal, man. If you're talking strength.
Yeah, absolutely. We had him. God, it's been ages since we did the one we did a podcast with Keefe. But Chris was like, yeah, he's a character. He's interesting to talk to. Yeah. He definitely, I would say, he's absolutely like built, like mechanically, he's built for deadlifting and a lot of these power movements. But having like joked about him with it, about it before, he does not want to do powerlifting.
No,
never been his interest. Yeah.
Oh man.
Maybe you should do a powerlifting show in your off season, bro. And he was like, no. So each their own, right? Yeah,
for sure. He would definitely do really well though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, how many people are 23? He's 23, I think. Still 23. Yeah. How many people his age are moving that kind of weight? No one. And anyone who's lifting that kind of weight for at least one of the lifts, they're not lifting it for the rest of the lifts. Like
he does it for like I think when I was 23, actually no. Yeah, I think I pulled 300 when I was 23.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, he's doing like 320 for like reps. But then I'm a little bit lighter, so when I was then, so
yeah, that could
also I use that my excuse.
Yeah, another thing that I noticed as well with him is that, and I think this is a really interesting thing, and at some point in time, if I have the time or like ever feel like I can, I would like to experiment with this. As an S&C coach, I'd like to experiment with the idea of rebounding repeatedly over the course of like a year and a half. Like he has like rinsed shows for the past few years, pretty much. Competed the year before, competed this past year, and now he's going into what appears to be more of a long off season. But he's sort of, in my eyes, sort of mastered that rebound and taking full advantage of it, like just eating loads and loads of food, taking advantage of how like insulin sensitive he is and the rest of it. And I think that translates very much into his lifting ability. Like, I know post show for me, at least, like I've only prepped once, like being show lean once, but even when I was like, God, 16, when I first like dropped weight and then started to eat more, I felt like I could lift the world a bit, you know. So I think that's an interesting sort of thing maybe to explore. As
I think, yeah, I think a lot of people can do it. Like a lot of natural bodybuilders tend not to. I
Yeah.
think people definitely can gain a lot from it, but I think really what's holding most people back is more the mindset of being able to do it. So like how much diet fatigue that you hold throughout the season. That's definitely like one thing for me. From 2019, why I didn't prep, like I probably could have like built muscle still and progressed in the look from 2019 if I competed to 220, but nah, man, like I think mentally I wouldn't have been able to cope, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think the reason I say that was because I know, and like if you ever ask AJ or someone, they'll tell you this as well. Like with me, pretty much immediately post my last show, I was to AJ, I was like, I want to compete next year. I want to compete next year. I want to compete next year. And
100%.
he was like, no, don't wait. And I think part of that is like you talk about the whole mindset behind it. Like I had it in my head already. I was like, let's get to work. Let's get to work. Let's get to work. My body didn't really want to respond for the first like 2 weeks post show, of course. Makes sense. Your body's all over the place in terms of like stress response and everything else, and like the massive influx of food. But yeah, I still had that mindset going into the off season, and I think that's why I progressed very quickly for that initial part. But I do agree. I think it's very much a mentality thing, and I think Keefe would tell you that as well. He's very much an advocate of like having his head in like a certain headspace to do things. Hence why you're the exact same music for top sets and stuff like that.
He's definitely there. Like he's got that, like whether it's a genetic thing or something he's worked on, he's definitely able to do these shows like year on year and have absolutely no problem with adhering to the diet. But you know, I think not everyone has that ability to do that, right? And that is definitely something that can hold people back from competing year upon year, right?
Yeah.
More so than anything else, if all honesty.
Yeah, and I think as well, because I think it might be a location thing because Keefe is like out in the sticks, right? Like up in the Highlands somewhere, just throwing weight around. So I imagine it's partly like where he was, like where he's been brought up and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, even if he wanted to cheat and binge on his diet, he couldn't. He'd have to walk or drive for like an hour just to get like to a supermarket.
He'd have to put in serious steps to go anywhere to do what he wanted to do, even if that's funny. Yeah, let's get back around to you though. So obviously you've been through a lot of phases in terms of like your fitness journey, and like why don't you tell me where you started? Like what's your story?
Yeah, so I guess from where I started, very similar to most people, I guess. Your I think it started for me when we first started buying clothes, right? So when JD, I don't know if this is before your time, but but JD Sports, when they were doing like I think 2 for £10 kind of t-shirts, and you're buying them and you're like, oh my God, is this how I look? Like I'm wearing like a small t-shirt, which looks like a large oversized t-shirt as people would wear now, but it wasn't in fashion then, right? And that's what really triggered me the most to make that change. I was like, fuck, I look shit in these t-shirts, you know. I want to get a bit bigger, and yeah, it all kind of stemmed from there, and I started training, and that took me to about, you know, I was probably training in like I would say like a miniature hardcore gym that was very local to me, and Blitz Gym.
Okay.
So shout out to them, but they're now shut down. But yeah, I was there, and I think from there I was at uni at the time as well, 19, and we had a work placement kind of module that we had to do, and I chose to do it at this gym called Genesis Gym, which is a powerlifting gym, and that's kind of where everything kind of exploded from. Um, at the time, there was a big group of British powerlifters that were prepping for the finals that year. And I don't know if you've heard of Phil Lerney, right?
I have done, yeah.
Yeah. So Phil was and there was a large group and they were all training at Genesis. So this was Phil when before, him doing all the business stuff that he does now, he was doing powerlifting, he was still working at Third Space. That's when I met him. And he actually, funny enough, got me into the whole PT and fitness industry thing. Like that's how I knew what I wanted to do. Like he was speaking to a few people in the gym about nutrition, about training, and I was there at the time working doing the work placement, and that's kind of where I developed that, and I said, "Oh, this is something that I want to do for the future." And yeah, going back to the training aspect, so they were all prepping for the finals, and the owner is the organizer. So imagine like Lee Kemp, right? He owns, let's say Genesis, he owns the gym and he organizes the bodybuilding comps. And Dave was that guy that did that. And I asked him, I said, so how do you get involved in this whole powerlifting business? I'd love to try it. And
Yeah.
he said, what do you lift? And I said, well, I have no idea. And he was okay, cool. Let's try you out and see what you can lift. And we went into the gym, and the next day, and he was like, okay, we're squatting. Let's try you out and see. And I think I squatted about 140.
Yeah.
The first time I was like maybe 69 kilos, and I squatted 140. And he said, okay, stick this on, and he gave me a belt, right, some random belt.
Yeah.
And I squatted I think 160, and he said, okay, stick these knee wraps on, and I squatted I think 190 in the gym on
Yeah.
that day, and that was like I never used to train legs, you
Wow.
know. That was from then I was like, oh, I play football, I don't need to train legs. And I squatted 190 in the gym, and then they were doing openers, practicing openers at the time, and another guy was in the same class as me, and he was like, oh, so he's just I didn't know what to lift, right? So I said to him, what should I lift? He said, just do whatever he's doing. And literally I just deadlifted exactly what he did. And you know, after that week, he was like, okay, you're in, right? So that means like he gave me like a buy for the finals. And
Yeah.
I like the next week after that was like a deload week for them. And the following week was the finals. So within 2 weeks of trialing me, I went straight into the finals and I won my class and I pulled a British record deadlift. And that was I think 231 at the time I did at under 75 kilos. Yeah, I think it was
Easy.
it was a teen class, yeah.
Here's me weighing like maybe like when did I do my best? Like I did a single once in the past like 2 years. When I was at uni, and the best I got was 240. And that's after years of training. So the fact that you walk in and just do that is ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't really even deadlift prior to that. Like I had zero technique, pulling like rounded back, whatever. And um, yeah, I don't know, man. Sometimes some things are just, meant to be. And if I wasn't there at the right time, I think, yeah, none of that would have happened, and probably wouldn't even be doing what I'm doing now to this day, right? Yeah.
So how'd you go from basically being like a prodigy effectively in powerlifting to then I imagine you did a few more meets and stuff for powerlifting, yes? And then
Yeah, I continued on for about 5 years doing powerlifting, and literally every British final after that, every year, I won it, and I won the overall as well. I went to Worlds that year, and I won the overall there. Um, I pretty much won the overall for the teens up to juniors all the way every single year. Um, and I think I kind of got a bit bored of it, if I'm all honesty. You kind of you chase the trophies, you chase the winning side of things, and then over time you kind of lose touch, right? And because not to say it becomes too easy, but
You
you
got no
lose.
challenge and no real competition.
Yeah, I think even towards myself, like I had my last competition, which was in 2015. I came back to basically compete against one guy who was I left to Singapore at that time, and I was working there abroad, so I didn't compete in powerlifting in the UK. And there was one guy who was just winning, at that time, and I was like, okay, so cool, he's winning. I'm gonna come back and basically beat him. And I flew back and I did that comp and I beat him. And then from that point, it was just literally, well, I've kind of done everything that I wanted to do in the sport. I've won, 6, 7 British titles. I won the overall at Worlds, won the overall pretty much every year in powerlifting after that. At one point, I was probably the strongest under 75 junior for the deadlift.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I pretty much got everything that I wanted out of the sport. And not to say that I wouldn't go back, but it's definitely not on my priorities at this moment in time.
I was going to say this. So, how do you go from being a world-class powerlifter for your weight and having world records, stuff like that, effectively, to going into bodybuilding? How do you even get to that point? Because like I know they get kind of lumped together.
Yeah.
It's like sports, but they are very different. So how did you end up on stage? What happened?
Because I lost the love for powerlifting right at that time, and when you go through that post meet kind of thing, it's kind of like post show, right? You kind of lose direction, you have the blues right from it, and you don't really know what you want to do. And then when you know that you've like pretty much retired basically from the sport, it's a bit like, what do I now focus on? Like, how do I actually train? It's always been, trying to lift more, trying to squat, deadlift more. And you don't really know what you want to do, right? So then at that time, I met JP or Jordan Peters and Corin when they were doing powerlifting at the time, or when Corin was. I think that was 2010 when I met them. So yeah, before JP is the animal that he is now. And I think I contacted him after my last show in powerlifting, and he ran through the training side of things with me. And one of my good friends who's now passed away, Mike Porter, he actually took me through a photo shoot prep pretty much that year after I finished powerlifting. I'd never done any kind of dieting for like physique purposes. It was always more for like weight cuts and, making weight for powerlifting. And, because I was PTing at the time, doing a lot of like body transformations, I thought, I should really, go about it and give it a go myself. So I went for a photo shoot. And I think from that moment, that's pretty much when I was like, I fell in love with, the physique side of things. And I thought, okay, well, I went to watch a few shows, and I was like, I can do this, and that's kind of where it all started from there. Yeah.
So, what was your first show in then? UKDFBA,
I actually did some shows in Singapore actually in 2017. So that was my first competitive season, and I actually did that with Jordan, and I think I enjoyed it for sure. But I just did some random federations, and they were all like non-drug tested or Muscle Mania, where they're supposed to drug test you, but they absolutely don't. And didn't even place, to be fair, in my first year of competing. I got in some decent shape, but it was definitely a large learning process, during that. And UK DFBA in 2019, that was my second competitive season. Yeah, that I did.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, which shows did you do in 2019 then? Because
I did the USN Classic.
Okay.
I did the Heart of England and the finals. Yeah.
That's confusing as fuck to me then.
Why is that?
I would have been at the same show then. Because I did the Heart of England. I don't I have no recollection of seeing you there. I've just fucking been brain dead and missed you entirely. But you were there, so that's cool.
But it was so quick, right? Those shows, I think, in and out like by like 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
it was so good, so efficient.
It was very efficient, especially for the men's. I feel like we got like juniors. Juniors was stacked to that show. Like there was a stupid amount of juniors. There was like 15 plus juniors or something on the list. And we did like multiple call outs for that. And that was busy. But yeah, I was out and in Nando's by 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So yeah, it worked out well for me. But
it's easy to miss people though, like when you're in the shows, because you kind of only really know who's in your class or who's kind of around the warm-up area. It's very quick to kind of go through.
Who was the top 5?
Yeah.
Like in my head, I was like, okay, I've competed against these two before. I kind of know who to watch out for. But aside from that, like, yeah, it's just, yeah. Man, that was a good show though. I very much enjoyed that show. Yeah. It was quick as well. Like that was my first experience with getting a spray tan done as well with a one-time like Nicola Gilbert. So I went there in the afternoon the day before. The day before was fucking hot as well.
Yeah.
Really warm. So I remember going there and having it done and like at some point sweating while I was having it done and having to like towel, like dab very lightly. And then they would finish the spray and man, what a mess that was. And then get touch-ups on the morning. Actually, one thing that I've never said, actually, I don't think on the podcast was at that show, I made the mistake for the first time of not lining the toilet bowl with toilet paper when you got stage tan on.
Yeah.
So I had to have touch-ups and I left a toilet seat at the Heart of England venue with like...
That was you?
Yeah, with a brown ring on it, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Don't tell Lee that.
I'm not saying it. Yeah. At the time, I was like, oh, fuck. Whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed that show. That's cool then. So we
what other shows did you do then? Sorry.
I only did other than that, I only did the BMBF Midlands.
Did you like it?
I really enjoyed BMBF. It will have a special place in my heart, mainly because it was the first show I did. It wasn't ran the best. There was some delays and stuff, which is fine. It was more so the backstage.
Elite, right? Like that. This year was the first time I did it, and I was blown away by how phenomenal the backstage and the whole show was run. In all honesty,
yeah,
crazy. They had suites backstage for you to pump up. They had dumbbells. They had bands. It was organized. They had people glazing you.
Yeah.
The only thing that they're missing is the tanning aspect of things.
Yeah.
But other than that,
it was.
Man, I was blown away by how fantastic it was.
I was without a doubt looking back on it, having been to a ton of shows since then. I was blessed to have that as my first show and having the people who were there as well. Like AJ was there, of course, but I also had Jack there. That's where me and Jack met each other properly, having spoke for a good part of our preps. Who else was there? Jack.
Was Dan there?
Crumpton. Yeah. He was there. He was there at my second show as well. Congrats to him on his kid, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for the two of them. Jack Bennett, if you know Jack Bennett.
I think so.
He looks phenomenal, by the way. If you haven't seen him, like he's a great.
He was coached by AJ as well, right?
He was not.
Was he not?
I don't know who he was coached by. He might have even coached himself because I know he's a coach, but he looked phenomenal then. Also, so I think who else was there? Oh, the winner of the juniors at Heart of England, Matt Berry was there as well.
Yeah,
so we did the whole of that season together, pretty much, or like the whole of my first season was with him. And there was a few other people, but because there was delays in the show, there was an extra like half hour to an hour backstage where just the juniors were just in a room together, just being dicks, just doing dumb shit, doing curls, making Arnold impressions, just a full night, like making pumping iron quotes, just being dicks. Just annoying the
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. But that was my first season, so I think I was actually kind of blessed with the shows that I did. on the season that I did it. Obviously, since then,
Yeah.
I had the past 2 years, which have been like all over the place and very difficult to like get around. And but I do think, having seen the shows more recently, like the feds have done a good job at like pulling everything together and making things work still, which is
It's pretty nuts, right?
yeah. So what other shows have you got this season? What else you
Oh
got?
man, so it's kind of up and down, man. Like we've got potentially the UK DFBA on the 5th, which is I think the Southern show.
Yes.
So that's probably my next comp. Depends if I qualify there. So if I qualify there, then I'll probably skip Heart of England. But if I don't, then I've got kind of like a plan B, I guess. So hopefully I don't need to use that. And then if I qualify, then obviously going on to the UK DFBA finals. And the thing is, right now, I don't know if you've seen the news with the WMBF, right, and the BMBF, because their shows are on exactly the same day.
Oh,
Yeah, so you're not seeing it.
Okay, I've not seen that.
So yeah, basically I've paid for the WMBF like ages ago, right? And then the BMBF is like on the same day the final. So I'm like, what do I do? Do I do the prejudging in the morning in Leicester and then go down to Leatherhead in the evening to do the finals in the BMBF?
Have they given commentary on that? Have they figured that out at all? Like,
I don't know, man. I don't think there's gonna be any budge.
Who looked at that and went, yeah, that'll do. Yeah, let's do that.
I don't know. It is what it is, right? Yeah. Hopefully, there comes to be some sort of agreement and somebody shifts, so that then all the athletes can actually get to do one or the other, or both. Sorry. Otherwise, yeah, it becomes one or the other, right? And then you have to choose. And I guess it's kind of annoying because it puts all of us as athletes in a dilemma, right? Because then you're like, well, I would compete in all these shows, but you don't really get an option to do that. I think the BMBF is great because it's just bodybuilding, right? And I love that side of it. But there's also like there'll be people. I think the WMBF you don't need to qualify, so it's just like qualifying the finals in the same kind of day. So there's going to be, I think, a lot of people who don't qualify for the BMBF finals that will be at the UK at the WMBF finals. So it's like it's a shame. Hopefully something gets resolved and everyone can compete and do multiple shows, right? I think ultimately these shows are for us, right? They're for the athletes.
Especially like WMBF and BMBF, they're very similar in terms of like the body of like who runs them, how they're run, all that sort of stuff. They are connected at the end of the day. So you would have thought they would come to some sort of agreement to make that easier. At the end of the day, also as well, they're losing money off the back of doing something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Like there's a massive conflict of interest there. So
I don't know. There's obviously some behind the scenes beef, right? But it is what it is. And hopefully something gets resolved so that then, the athletes can actually do what they want to do. And ultimately a lot of it is supposed to be built for athletes, right? Every Fed always says that. They say, oh yeah, these competitions are built for the athlete, by athletes. And I think if it really is the case, then there needs to be some sort of agreement that's come about. And I think everyone should get a chance to be able to compete in whatever Fed that they want and shouldn't have to be put in any dilemma or any kind of choice, right?
That being said, what would you end up picking? Or do you know yet?
I think, in all honesty, probably leaning a little bit more towards the BMBF.
Okay.
Just simply, I don't know if you can hear the ice cream van.
Yes, I can.
Anyway, probably the BMBF, just because I've had a really good experience with them, and it's bodybuilding only. Not that I like hate physique, but it definitely extends the length of the show.
Yeah.
And then the finals is also at the same place that we were at last week, or 2 weeks ago. So it's really close to my house as well.
That's so practical for you. I saw.
Yeah.
Where's the WMBF going to be then?
I think it's Birmingham.
It's Birmingham. I was going to say, I've always been intrigued to maybe do that at some point in time, just to what it's about and see how they run things.
It's new, right? So no one knows.
Yeah, it sort of comes across as like WMBF put themselves forward as being like the premier sort of league
body, right? Yeah,
for natties. That's sort of what they come across as. So I'm really intrigued to see what they're like and what they're actually about. But
I think ultimately any fed in the UK is where it's at in terms of natural bodybuilding.
Good feds, man.
Man, our amateur scene is ridiculous. Like, it's actually scary. There's going to be people that miss out this year that or don't place or whatever, or come third, and you look at them, you're like, these guys, if they went to America, they'd be pro standard.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it just shows, like, in 2019, I think I went to the WMBF Worlds in New York, and I think Gerard, he got his pro card and he won the overall in the amateurs. I think he placed second or third in the finals.
Jesus, what, man?
He won the overall in Worlds, right? And he placed, like, I think second.
That was very, very similar for Jack Richardson. He did teens.
Yeah.
And he went and competed. It might have been in New York. I don't know which year it was, but he went and competed. He placed like third or second or something as a teen there. Like that's the quality of British bodybuilding right now, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I like having the stakes being that high as well, because it definitely elevates everyone. Like, I know, like
100%.
Myself this past 2 years, even from like when I competed in 2019, the standard was pretty good. Like, the people who competed at the time were very impressive. You had Keefe around. You had who was the junior winner? Powell.
Adam.
Yeah, he looks sick. You had like a bunch of these like natty junior guys who are under 23 coming out of the woodwork, who arguably, if they went into just the normal, like the regular lineup or whatever, they'd probably end up winning some of those lineups as well.
It's crazy, man.
The age categories above. So yeah, it's crazy.
That junior guy at the show, at the BMBF show, the Southern, who won the best wheels. My God, he's a freak, dude.
Yeah,
he is an animal. I don't know what his name is, so apologies if he's watching.
I think he's called, is it Rawa? I think that's his Insta.
Yeah. His posing was shocking, but I mean, he was fucking. He had a lot of muscle, man.
Yeah,
very good physique.
It wasn't even just the leg trick. His arms, delts, like him in the side chest was just nuts.
I'm standing next to him. I'm like, you're a junior? Like, how?
Yeah, that's what I want. This is something that, like, this year's got me so excited for next year. So excited to compete again. Yeah. And like, I was in two minds the other week. I was like, I want to start like just pulling off some weight now. Like, that's how sort of excited I'm getting to compete. And I had AJ say to me, "It's like, now wait, like, you don't like 2-3 months of your off season at least. Like,
you must go through that headache all the time. Everyone's like, I just want to diet, man. I want to do these shows." And then he's like, no.
To be fair, it's taken me like 2 years to get to this point now where I'm like peak off season, like peak off season. I'm 110 kilos, heaviest I've been in my entire life. Like, it's taken me to this point now after 5 years of training to get above the weight I was at when I was a fat fuck at 15. So, and now I actually feel heavy. Like, I actually feel really heavy. So I'm ready to diet. I'm ready to get step on stage, man.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's when you get the best preps, is when you're like, I'm ready to diet.
Yeah.
I think this year for me, like when I started dieting, I was like, I'm ready, but I could do another year off season.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was kind of like that.
I had the blessing though of knowing, I think that this, like, in my head, I was like, well, I have a cut off for juniors, right? Age wise, like I'm 21
Yeah,
now,
for sure.
and like,
Really, damn.
yeah, I'm limited still in terms of time. I'm limited in terms of time, right? So that's always something that's in my head is like, I'm on the clock, and I've been on the clock for the past 2 years, and it's not stopped ticking. I'm not 19 years old on stage anymore. I'm gonna have to bring something real this time around, especially with the caliber of competitors in 2022 or 2021.
But it comes on so quickly, man. Like the muscle mass, it really does when you're young. And I'm like 29 now. Everyone thinks I'm like, 21 or whatever. They see me.
That's for 21. You're still a uni.
Yeah, mate, I got ID'd for Monster.
Yeah, I was talking to a few people about this. You as well. Like I got ID for Monster, and I I was on the way to Ultraflex, and I was like, I'm gonna drop in, get a Monster. I'm not gonna use pre today. Just chill.
Yeah.
Went in, grabbed the white Monster, scanned it through. Lady comes over. Bearing in mind, I'd seen this lady multiple times in the past week because she asked me on other occasions as well. Came over to me. She's like, looked at me, looked up at me because she's like a little lady. Looked up at me. Was like, ID, please. I'm like, I just started laughing.
Yeah.
He sounded. It's like I felt really bad because it must have come across as really rude. But I was on the way to the gym, third time that fucking like in the past week or so. And it was the same woman asking me for my fucking ID. Do I look like I'm 16 years old?
Did you get a decline though?
No, that's fine. They gave it to me. Like I have my ID on me and my driver's license on me, but
see, I didn't have mine.
Oh,
so mine got declined. So she took it away from me.
What the fuck?
And I'm not 21. I'm 29. I'm well in.
Yeah. I don't understand, right? Well, like this is news to me, right? That they have to ID for monsters. Like I remember being 15 fucking years old, going to the shop and just being able to get a monster. Like what happened in the past 5 years where they're like 29-year-olds can't have monsters now?
It just goes to show, right? This must be scary. Something that they're putting in there must be,
yeah.
You've
probably gotten like 5 lawsuits from parents or something over something, and now they're like, nope, can't do it. That's annoying. Yeah. I was talking to do you know Caitlin? Caitlin Hall. We in one of the group chats. I was like, yeah, I was ranting at this point because I was mad at the fact that I've even been asked for the third time. And I was like, but it's fine for me to go in, get like a liter of fucking like iced coffee or something. That's probably this more caffeine, but no, like the can of Monster can't do that. Or how about like, I don't know, a glass jar of Kenko coffee? Do I have to get ID for that as well for stimulant? Like, oh, man.
I don't know if is it just a stimulant that they're IDing you for, or is it something else?
You would have thought something like the one everyone raves about, right? Is aspartame, but that's in like literally every drink at this point, and they're not IDing you for Diet Cokes, are they? So. Where are we at with this? Like, what is going on? Where's the logic? Oh well, yeah. I'll like let's leave that there, viewers. I'm talking about the energy drink rant, but it's been playing on my mind the last few weeks. So coming back around to your prep. So you obviously won your last show, your class. I was there. You looked fucking awesome. Are you still at a point now where like you're trying to pull off some, or are you just holding?
100%. Yeah, I need to pull off some. I think how I looked for that show was okay. It was reasonable for a qualifier, and I think it'll still be reasonable for the next qualifiers. But when you come down to the finals and you're doing men's open, it's it's a big fight, man. Those guys, they're up there. You have to bring the condition, man. Otherwise, like everyone says, there's no point in having a shit ton of muscle if you can't display it and you can't show it, right? And I think, that's definitely a difficult process for me. Like I have a lot of muscle, but it's just bringing that condition, which has always been a very big struggle for me.
I will say, like I thought at the time, considering obviously your like hospital trip at the start of the week, the fact that you like on the day managed to pull up and got better over the course of the day as well was pretty impressive. And by the end of the day, you were like on, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I think at the start it was kind of clear that you were maybe not so confident about what you might look like, but by the end of the day, like as soon as you started posing, it just sort of came alive, which is really fucking cool. So speaking of posing, your posing routine, you were working with Hymsuen, right? That's who you're working with for posing.
Yeah, I mean the mandatory stuff. Then I never really do anything like that with Hymsuen. I've it's only the routine stuff that I usually get someone to help me out with. I had some help in 2019 with him as well, and also Donna.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's something that I'm very much interested in this time around. I did my own routine and my own posing pretty much during 2019. I mean, AJ like stepped in on occasion with mandatories to be like, hey, look, you need to like not put your foot like in line with your other foot in the side, like relax, because otherwise you'd lose your leg and stuff like that. But like in terms of posing routine, I didn't like go to anyone for it, and this time I want to. And like there's a few people who I spoke to about, and a few routines that I've seen, yours included, where I'm like, I think it just highlights the importance, especially for people who aren't necessarily naturally great posers, to go to these people and actually speak to people who are good at posing, and they're like do posing classes and they're masters at, like Hymsuen, or even I don't know, Terence Ruffin or someone like that.
I was horrible at posing like before, like horrible, which is why, you know, whenever I'm bad at something, I'll practice it a lot until I get good at it. And that's pretty much what's happened with my posing. I've just been very critical with it, you know, looking at it and being like, this is shit. And then, you know, correcting it. I think a lot of it does, the mandatories comes from like, obviously, Jeff Alberts, who's my coach. He's a very, very good poser. So we do quite a lot every season. We do some Skypes, and we always run through the mandatories, which I think is the most important. If you can't like do the mandatories properly, you know, your posing routine is going to be shit as well, right? And there's no point in practicing your posing routine unless your mandatories are on point. So always, you know, prioritize what's really important, which is the mandatories first. Even Valentin Tambosi, I don't know if you know him. Earlier in the season, he was helping me out quite a lot with you know, some posing as well. He's very, very, you know, glued up on that as well. Yeah, shout out to Valentin. Yeah, I'm a big fan of him, man. Yeah, for sure.
I followed him for a while because I remember, I think AJ might have actually mentioned him to me like a couple of years ago, and I was like, I remember looking him up and be like, whoa, this guy's cool. Follow, like looking at him. Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing for me going forward, having seen like how your routines turned out on a bunch of other people, is like I need to actually get clued up and find a coach. Maybe Sansa, who knows? I might.
He's great, man. Yeah, no, absolutely no. And it's not just him. So his Mrs. Malenka, I don't know, absolutely butcher. She's always there as well. And man, she knows a lot about posing as well, you know, because she's obviously seen hours of him doing it. And she helps out a lot. Like, you know, she's one of those, it's usually the case, right? There's always a female behind the scenes, which is the absolute
any big,
you know, gem.
There's always a one behind it. So I might reach out to him. I want to get him on the podcast as well, so that might be a good opportunity to in future do that. But yeah, that's very cool. Another thing that you just mentioned that I completely forgot about. So Team 3D MJ, how'd you get started with them?
So yeah, that was 2019. So for the first show, the USN Classic, I was coached by another coach. Yeah. And then I guess halfway through the season, I actually swapped to 3DMJ. Okay. And I think it was more so I just wanted to learn.
Mm.
and I wasn't sure when I was going to prep again. So I was like, okay, well, I was listening to all their podcasts. I was just like rinsing um, every single bit of content that I could from them. I think as you do, right? If you're about to hire someone, or if you're going to invest in something, you're going to listen and read everything that you can from that individual, right? And do your research. And that's exactly what I did. And the more I did that, the more I just loved their process. And yeah, and that's kind of how I got started, and it's been pretty much 2 years into that process now. And I feel like I've developed a very, very strong coaching relationship, as you do, right? Even say yourself and AJ, I'm sure he knows you very, very well, as
Yeah.
not just like maybe not even so much your physique and your body, but definitely how your mindset works and what
Sure.
triggers you and what gets you going. And I think that's more so important when it comes to coaching than the X's and O's. It's that relationship, it's the understanding your athlete, and that takes a long time to develop. You may not get that in your first prep, and a lot of people I think jump from coach to coach within one prep.
Mhm.
And I think the key, you're not going to see that process improve, and you're not going to see the best out of you from that individual coach until you develop that long-term relationship with them.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree, and that's why I even for next year, I've already spoken to AJ about it in passing. Like I'll be prepped by him again,
Mm.
because like I've done my own off season, but he knows. Like I would hate to waste the fact that he's seen 8+ months of what I've looked like, how I conduct myself, how I train, like the X's and O's, like he
Yeah.
knows what I'm like. So yeah, like I would hate to waste that kind of relationship and start from scratch. Like
I think a big thing is age as well, with
yeah,
coaches. A lot of times, you know, like Jeff's like 50 years old, man. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
And probably the amount of people that he's prepped, amount of times he's prepped, he's been training for longer than I've been alive.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And that experience wise that you get from that, um, it's untouchable, right? You can't change that, and you'll know yourself as you go through your preps and whatnot. The more times that you do it, the more experience that you get from it. That's something you can't read from a book,
Yeah.
right? And I think I take a lot of value from the actual experience side of things more so than the science and the other aspects that 3DMJ also have.
That's an interesting comment you just made in regards to like it being a learning experience, and that was another thing I know. Like in the beginning, one of the things that I was actively looking for in terms of coaching was someone who had the experience and also conducted themselves as almost like a tutor in a way, like or like you were a student under them. That's another important thing for me, and that's like the ethos I try and put across as well as a coach. Like I know with AJ, I like the few people that I did reach out to, other than AJ. Like I'm fine saying this. I reached out to Callum Raystrick,
Mm-hmm.
and that was because at the time I was seeing a lot of Muscle Mentors podcasts. Like they were coming to Ultimate Fitness on a regular basis at that point because they're doing seminars and stuff. A few other people were. I'm trying to think who else I reached out to. I might have reached out to.
You must have reached out to Jordan, right? Everyone does.
Yeah, everyone reaches out to. I reached out to Jordan. I reached out to. I even asked Sai. I spoke to Sai in my gym.
Yeah.
Of Ultimate Fitness. Like he's an older guy who like he's been there, done that. He was like a world-class bodybuilder, and he knows everything inside out, and he knows like how to prep people. So that was another person I asked as well. But he also then said, why don't you just go to AJ? So
Yeah.
that's how that relationship started. I think that's super important. Like taking the time to find a coach that one fits like you, two you're willing to stick with for a long time, and three you're going to learn from the process. Like but by the end, like I went into that prep not really knowing what to expect in terms of how it was going to run.
Yeah.
Anything like that. Like a level 3 personal trainer qualification doesn't really count for shit when you're doing the bodybuilding prep. And I came out the other end knowing exactly what I needed to do going forward. And that was like a huge thing for me. So
I think a big one as well is just finding a coach that fucking cares about you as well.
Yeah.
Like really, like genuinely wants you to improve. And I think you can see that from AJ when he does prep his clients. Like he has that good relationship with you guys, right? And it's definitely something which is really important. I think, you know, you could have the smartest coach, the most, you know, famous, whatever, you know, guru out there, but if they don't generally, if they're like handling too many people and they don't actually care about your progress, they're not the right coach, right?
And the other thing as well is like that reflects on the clientele as well, because then like with AJ's like group, everyone knows everyone, or everyone like I saw
It's a community, right?
Yeah, and like even if you've never spoken before, like I saw Theo Ultraflex this past like week. He's competing this coming weekend because I'm going up to Birmingham to watch the BNBF Midlands as well.
Yeah.
He's going to be competing there, and I went up to him and was like, "Hey, look, what's going on? Like, how's it going? Like, how's your prep? Stuff like that." And I think that's like a huge thing, a huge thing to have that like that impact that the coach has made to be reflected on everyone underneath him. Like,
it's that team thing, isn't it? You feel like you belong.
Yeah.
Team AJ.
I've still got my Team MBM hoodie. I don't know where it is actually, but I wear it when I find it. But I got when he gave me that hoodie, I remember it because I was fucking gassed that he gave me that hoodie.
Yeah.
It was I think it was at my second show. He gave me that hoodie. I was like, yes, I'm on the team. Like, it's just really funny. Like,
and afterwards he takes away, you're off the team.
Took it back off me. It's I don't wear it too much now because I'm bigger than I was. Like, I've basically eaten myself at this point, so it doesn't really fit me properly.
It's a prep hoodie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100% a prep hoodie. Right now, it's like because of like where my shoulders and like my upper body are, it rides up and it's a bit like a crop top at this point.
So yeah, AJ, if you're hearing, Jermaine needs a new hoodie.
AJ, you know, I was actually, that was the other reason I was gassed with it, because it was an embroidered hoodie and it was one of the new hoodies at the time. I was like, I'm one of the first fucking people to get this hoodie.
Yeah,
I was gassed about that. Yeah, so coming back around to the topics at hand. Yeah, I think that's an important thing for people who are going to be watching this. Like, our viewers are a good mix. Like, some of them are like from what I've seen, a lot of young people who are just coming into bodybuilding in this sort of niche of the fitness industry. So them hearing stuff like this, I think, is like super beneficial, super important. It's something that's not necessarily covered a lot on this page because we tend to get a lot of, how do you say it, like, I guess a lot of like older people who want to talk about topics like nutrition, in depth, and gut microbiome and digestion, stuff like that. We get like stuff like that on here as well. So I think for the people watching, definitely take your time. That's a huge thing. Take your time, figure out exactly what you want and like what sort of coach you want to be working with in future, because yeah, it makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference.
I mean, yeah, I was always into the science and all the, you know, biomechanics and, you know, the gut stuff and whatever. All of that stuff is great, right? But there's nothing that beats, you know, coaching is not just about the science and not just about, you know, those the X's and O's. Like, I always say it, and I just think the relationship that you get from your coach, you know, the feedback. There's no point in telling someone all of this stuff if they can't apply it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you just told them one thing that they could do and they actually executed it, that's more than enough. That's value there,
That's what
right?
I mean.
And I think a lot of people get that wrong in terms of coaching, is they try to give too much. And it's like, what can you actually give this person in front of you? The one thing that they can action for the week that is going to be the biggest rock that's going to change everything, right, for them in that week. And it doesn't have to be massive, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, drop 20 grams of carbs and eat, this Pop Tart. It could be as simple as, I want you to start writing out, what time you're going to eat your food, and
Yeah.
that keeps you adherence. It could be as simple as that, and but it can make much bigger changes than, more the science and that.
Adherence is key at the end of the day. Like,
For sure.
it's all well and good. You could have everything in the world like done for you to a T and it be perfect, but if you're not consistent, there's nothing that's happening there. Like,
Yeah, it's just pulling, the horse in front of the cart, right? Or the cart in front of the horse, even. Butchered that. But
brain right there.
yeah, there you go. But it's always the case, right? People getting lost in all these, the smaller rocks, right? The higher fruits,
Yeah.
and they forget about the things which are right in front of them that they haven't done, that they need to do, which is going to get them basically 80 to 90% of the results, right?
Yeah,
And that's the biggest mistake people are making.
That's interesting. I had a friend ask me literally yesterday. This is someone who, like, I told the previous year when lockdown first happened, like, hey, look, go outside, be active, do steps, like get a bike, go on bike rides, stuff like that. Just try and be active. And like, I was just encouraging that person to be fitter and healthier generally. And she came to me the other day and was like, should I buy this, and sent me a picture of a Herbalife product. And after
use my code.
After initially not plugging Herbalife, fuck Herbalife. But after that initial thing, I was like, hey, look, at the end of the day, what did I tell you last year? Calories in, calories out. So why are you looking at this? Think it's going to make you lose weight? Like, like it's all well and good, like if you want to get a greens powder or something like that, but
people get lost, right? There's too much information. There's too much noise.
That is it. And like, and for the vast majority of people who haven't had that drilled into their heads, they're going to be stuck in that rut for a while. I think like there's a bunch of people who've come my way that I've like tried to work with and stuff, and because they can't wrap their head around that and can't separate certain feelings and ideas with like the reality of what's like objectively needs to happen, nothing happens. And that is 100% an issue for some people. But on the other hand, you do get like some older people who are like a 40-year-old guy who still wants to go to the pub to watch football and have a few drinks on the weekend, and they'll make great progress even though they're going out for a few beers on the weekend, so yeah, it can swing both ways.
Yeah, for sure. I always use the analogy of people spending like £300-400 on like the best face products. Like what I use to clear my spots, but then they don't even wash their face every day, that kind of shit.
So true.
That's usually what happens, right? And the same with training, right? People focus on all these other factors, all this fancy stuff, reverse bands, banning this, resistance profiles, supplements, you name it, right? But they don't even go to the gym.
Yeah, they don't train fucking hard.
Yeah, they don't even turn up to the gym some weeks. It's like, well, there's your answer, right?
That is a question actually that I'm intrigued to know what you think. Do you think it's acceptable for someone who's just started the gym to be using like force profile stuff and using like bands or reverse bands on something, even if they're hack squatting like 10 kilo aside or something?
I think it really depends on the context. Like it depends on if I was in the gym, like coaching this individual, I probably would do a little bit of resistance profile stuff, because a lot of times you'll find beginner clients, they'll be able to lift and have a lot of strength between one range, but then severely be underloaded in another range, and I think it can be beneficial for them, but only if obviously you set them up in that scenario, right? And you're using and you understand the principle. So if you're PTing, and I used to do this myself in the city, it's very quick, right? It was just like bang it on and the band's always there if you're working in a studio. But then if you're like online coaching and you're telling someone to do that, probably probably not the best thing that you could do in the world.
True.
You know,
I had a like staying on topic. I had a kid reply to my questions like Q&A the other day, and he's replied to them like a few things and asked questions before, but it was what was it? It was something like, yeah, I'm trying to do a lean bulk. This is like a 16, 17-year-old kid. He's like, I'm trying to do a lean bulk. I want to put on lean tissue. I don't want to gain fat. Should I I've seen people dropping like food on rest days. Should I also drop food on rest days? And will that maintain my lean bulk? And I was like, no, that's not what's doing. It's like, again, you get trapped in the idea of like certain things meaning certain things. And I was like, hey, look, man, like it's you being in the caloric surplus. Everything else outside of that, like you periodizing nutrition and stuff, great, go for it, do it. And it'll probably help you like in terms of training and how you feel and, you know, digestion and like insulin sensitivity, all that kind of stuff, you know, could have an impact. Like, but it's the P's and Q's. Like focus on the P's and Q's. You're trying to be in the surplus. And this is someone who's just starting training and they're already talking about periodizing nutrition.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, bud, just focus on.
When I started, I didn't even eat.
Yeah, bro.
I just trained.
I had no clue. I had no fucking clue. I did a bodybuilding.com diet. That's how I did. I used to have like, I basically did keto at one point when I was 16. The Tupperware had like asparagus or some shit in it, eggs, like boiled eggs in it, and then like fucking turkey or something. And I used to get on the train with it and just horrify the people on the train because it would stink. And that was like the era. Like I think after maybe in the past, it might be in the past 2-3 years, maybe because of like the abundance of knowledge that's now out there with people like JP and stuff. There's been a very big paradigm shift in what a lot of these younger guys who are 16 are looking at. Like
who uses social media the most as well, right? Like you gotta look, it's definitely the younger generation, and they can follow whoever they want, they can read whatever they want, take it in whatever context that they want to take it. And I think that's the scary thing, and there's no filter on it, right? Whereas when I was growing up, there wasn't any of that. And I would just look at the people that were big in the gym in itself, and you know, whether it was right or wrong what they did, I just fucking did it. I was like, oh, he's doing that exercise, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, that was me. I didn't train legs for my first year until oh shit.
Yeah, same.
And then I like started training, and I asked like a guy in the gym, hi, can you teach me how to squat with the barbell? I was like, yeah, sure. And then like the next week I was trying to do 1 rep maxes and shit, thinking I'll grow. Like I think going through stuff like that is super important to what made probably us and like our what of people, like what we are. Whereas I now wonder, are these younger people who are getting into this sort of field, like, are they going to have that role model of just, hey, look, do the basics, train fucking hard? Or are they going to get trapped in certain things like that still? Even though there's like I will say as well, sorry about the rant, by the way. I will say, like, when I was 16, I did kind of wish there was more out there. But at the same time, I'm happy and I enjoy the fact that the guy on gear at the gym at the time was like, nah, bro, you can be Arnold size naturally. I think I benefited more from that than someone being like, no, you can't build this set amount of muscle without taking anabolics or something like that, you know?
I had no idea about anabolics, you know, when I was like, it took me ages to even realize that people were on anabolics around me. And like there was people like lifting, the gym was lifting like, I thought 167 kilos, right? And he was like 50. And I always thought he was natural. And no one has said anything. And somebody told me that in the end. And I was absolutely devastated by that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
He's on steroids, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, now it's just like it's common knowledge, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like when we were younger, and I'm older than you, but when I was younger, uh, the first thing that you would do is kind of like you train, you'd get a protein shake, right? That was like ritual. Now it's like you train, you go to the gym, and the starter pack is you take drugs, you take steroids, right?
So true.
It's like, what the fuck is going on with the world now? You
Here's
know,
here's some resistance band and some fucking
yeah, literally.
yeah.
Here's resistance band, here's some knee wraps, and here's your starter pack of steroids.
Here's your stack. This is the base of everything. Yeah, that's super. That is totally like a thing. And like another thing that I was talking to some people about the other day was the idea of particularly with women in bodybuilding. I feel like there's an expectation now to get like a pro card by the time you're like 22 or 23.
For sure.
I think that's a big thing as well. Like looking at some of the younger girls who are coming up right now, there's like a level of expectation there with like, I can't remember what her name was. There's that one bikini pro who turned pro before she was 18 or something. Mm-hmm. And that became the standard, I think, at that point for female pro. So a lot of these girls are coming up and wanting, and they're chasing that pro card. And I would almost dare to say that culture of like training, diet, and drugs all in one combo, like for the first time bikini competitor is like such a women thing. Like it seems like it's very dominant in like the females right now.
See, I don't even care about a pro card, man. Like I just want to look like a pro. I don't like, even if I didn't get a pro card and I look like a pro, I'll be like, yo, whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because then you basically, everyone, like people look at you and be like, you should be a pro, right? And you're like, you probably could be a pro, right? But you don't really care. Maybe you haven't turned up at the right place, whatever. And I think that should be, the key, right? Is there's no point in having this card when you don't, like, people look at you. That I think for me, that would be the worst thing ever. If you have like in your bio, like, whatever pro, and then people look at your profile like, you're a pro? God, that would kill me, and that's definitely not where I would want to be.
That's super like poignant as well. Like that was another thing I put on my fucking Q&A on my story.
Yeah.
Someone sent me, I'm not gonna say who. I know who. Yeah. I have a lot of respect for them for asking me that on the story. They like, my opinion is, right, and this is opinion of quite a few people who I'm not going to name because I don't want to like direct anything at anyone. I want to try and avoid, because I know some people are a bit like more sensitive around this sort of thing.
Right. So we just kill people.
I don't want to kill people inside. Yeah. I fail to see the point in getting a pro card to then never have any success as a pro.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit pointless getting a, like, let's say I were to turn IFBB pro in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
Great. I then have, let's say I even had any potential to be a good pro, because there's turning pro, which is basically just amateur still, and then there's being a good pro who's like winning pro shows or placing top 3. I fail to see the point in doing that then to spend the next 5 years getting anywhere as a pro, as opposed to staying amateur for, I don't know, those 5 years, still winning prize money potentially if you were doing like a certain federation or something, still doing very well, building a presence, being very popular, and then at a point where you're actually very, very good, then going for a pro card. Like, I know a few people have done that in the past. Like, I think, is it Peter Molnar did that? He's a crazy physique who competed in like PCA pro sort of stuff, or just general PCA for years and years and years, and then this past year turned pro, started going into pro shows and placing the top 5 straight away. Like, I think that makes more sense, and that seemed to be the trend in like the 90s as well, because pro cards were so much more difficult to get. And it seems like now a lot of pro shows are handing out pro cards to like top threes and stuff in some divisions.
That's mad, isn't it?
It's bonkers to me. Like,
yeah.
Bearing in mind, I think that reflects on why the UK pros are so good. That our like scene for UK pro bodybuilders is incredible. Like Nathan Diasha, he's like a multiple pro show winner and like been to Olympia multiple times. Obviously, you've now got James, who's just like coming into his own. Competed last year, won 2 pro shows off the bat, like, and going to the Olympia as well. Like, I think that reflects massively on like like how hard it is in the UK to get a pro card. Even
Sasan, right? Like if you're looking at I think the old is it UK BFF or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It was only one. It's like what we have in the natural bodybuilding scene now, right?
Yeah.
Only one person gets it.
And that is
like, so that's fucking elite, man. That is so sick. Yeah. Like, so it then becomes prestigious, right?
Oh, for sure.
Before it was like, the WMBF pro card was so prestigious, but I don't actually think it was necessarily so prestigious. It was just because in the UK it was hyped up so much because UK DFBA were affiliated with them, and they only gave out one every year, right? One. And sometimes Lee even came out and said sometimes he wouldn't even give it to you if he didn't feel like your physique is. I think he said it on AJ's podcast. He said he wouldn't even give it to you if you didn't look like you had a pro physique, right? But one pro card, that's crazy, man. That's a tough ride. So that the guy who wins it deserves it.
And like obviously this past year, like one of the big ones coming out of the UK was Bob Waterhouse winning his IFBB pro card coming from the natty scene. Yeah. And the reality is there's people in the natty scene who he's been trying to beat for years and hasn't beaten. And he's got one card, but then you've got like David Kay and people like
what a don. He's definitely one of my favorite natural bodybuilders.
Without a doubt. Like he seems to be a bit more very under the radar as a bodybuilder. But like if you ever see people at home, look him up, David Kay, go to his account. His like shots are ridiculous. Like they're mind-blowing to me. And they're like arguably some of the best like photos that I've seen of a competitor in condition, period. Like
he's another one that with the height thing, I was shocked. I took a picture with him on that day and I was like, God, he's not even that much taller than me, but he's probably his stage weight is like easily 30 kilos above mine. So I'm like, whoa, you hold a lot of muscle, dude.
He's sort of chilling, like
chilling,
looking like that.
That's scary.
It is.
That is scary.
Like when I competed in 2019, I remember seeing him stomping around and be like, "What the fuck? That's a natural guy." And then I remember seeing him this past year and also going, "What the fuck? That's a natural guy." Like even though I've grown a bit, but I'm still nowhere near that. Like nowhere near. That's crazy. So
I think why he's under the radar as well because he sticks with the DFAC and BMBF. Like he doesn't really venture out anywhere else, which is fair enough. His choice, but I think it reduces the amount of exposure that he gets, right? So if he did what like Babacar does, where I think Babacar won, he's done the WMBF, he went to Musclemania, won that, and I think there was some talk about him doing some DFAC stuff as well. So
off the back of that, that's a lot of clout. There is a lot of clout.
Yeah, man. Imagine going to every Fed and just being like, I own you. I'm going to compete in whatever Fed I want, gradually, one by one, and I'm going to win the overall in every single Fed. Like, that is savage. That is straight balls, man.
Another one as well that people really forget about, I feel like, is the fact that Kai Green turned pro naturally before he turned pro.
Yeah.
And became the monster he ended up being. Like,
do you think he'll ever come back?
No, I'm not banking on it.
You don't think?
I'd love him too, but I'm always skeptical with these sort of things. Same thing with fucking Ramy winning the Olympia. I've always been very skeptical. I was like, he could do it. He could like, but again, because it's so far removed and stuff like that, I'm like, well, fuck, will he come back? But again, why the fuck is he stayed as big as he is if he's not coming back?
I think we'll see Kai back just because he signed Redcon. I'm sure Aaron Singerman's done something.
There's a contract deal there.
There's no way. There's no way you're signing such a name like that and giving him that kind of dollar without it.
But you have to compete. Yeah, something like that. I think that's also the reason why Rowley ended up competing this year. I think he didn't look his best, but he was coming off the back of a year of like knee issues and like B training and stuff like that coming into this season. But I think it was because he was contractually obligated. That's probably why he ended up competing, even though he wasn't like.
I was shocked by Rowley, man. When he came out, like I love Rowley's physique, but when he came out, I was like, whoa, he's lost muscle.
Yeah, and like I have a soft spot for him, and like people who've watched like the other podcasts, I'm always all for Rowley. He was the first pro that I ever saw on stage. It was at the 2016 Body Power when they were still running pro stuff out.
Yeah.
And it was just after
he won, right?
Yeah, he brought his waist down. It was the year he got a waist trainer. And he came in with this ridiculous like waist, and like I remember seeing that in person, being sat there going, "What the fuck am I looking at?" And that was the point I think where I was like, "Yeah, this bodybuilding thing's cool. I want to try it out, like properly try it out." That was the point where I was like, "Maybe I'll step on stage," because like, yeah, that guy has a soft spot in my heart. So I hope Rowley does come back at some point, like on. I think it's a case of him having like an actual off season to regain tissue at this point.
That's how I feel, man. When I go on stage, like I feel like I'm a bit hit and miss. If I'm on, then I'm like, you know, it could be really, really good, but you know, half the time I'm off.
Look, you had some valid reasons for the last show, and you still won.
Yeah.
So you're good. You get a pass.
I don't know, man. I'm a bit like uncertain with everything. Even 2019, man. Like I dieted for the USN Classic. I was on like for that, but then towards the end of the season, like, I couldn't hold it, man. I absolutely drilled myself into the ground for that first show, and I had no like expectations to compete any later in the season. And then you know you qualify for the finals. You're like, oh, I'll do the finals. Didn't even realize. And yeah, I just to hold that condition for 6 months was brutal, man. For like kind of like more or less a rookie season, and that's why I didn't turn up, man. When the finals came, and didn't even place, because I struggled with the diet and just holding on.
While we're here, actually, we're talking, I'll pull up your Insta so we can see that.
Yeah, it's just gonna be full of memes.
I know
and my face on other things.
I love the memes, man. I'm all.
I think everyone loves the memes. I need to bring out some more, but
you do.
Yeah.
Big. Okay, one sec. I've got so many browsers open. I'm trying to find the right one. Here we go. Boom. There we go. Now we're on. Now we're ready.
There you go, man.
Yeah. So, for anyone who hasn't seen the Hymsuen's page,
you gotta love the one that I posted in the middle there next to Bieber. That one. I don't know if you watch American football.
No.
But basically, when Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, he did it with Gronkowski. He did this video, and basically, I wanted to do this from like the beginning. So that has been like preempted for a long time. So I'm glad that I won that show, so I could at least do it for one season.
That's incredible. Let's also your this guy right here. This is what
Dan. What a legend.
Dan looked awesome. Like Dan was great. He actually did incredibly well in his class, I think. I was watching the audience and I was very impressed. And the judges liked him as well, I think. He was.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he looked better on this show. Like I was a bit of a pussy in terms of the the peak week. Like I didn't really fill him up enough for the BNBF. And he was a little bit on the flatter side, which is why he looked kind of hard in certain areas, but then flat in others. And then the week after, which was this MPA show, he definitely brought like his best for that. And we've just actually pulled the plug on the season. I think a lot of the feedback was just more so like a muscle standpoint, like size wise. Obviously, he's gone through like 2 meniscus injuries from American football. We used to play football together, American football at uni. So he went through 2 meniscus, which is why I think his legs are a little bit more undersized. But it just takes a little bit of time. I think you're never going to be bang on like the best for your first season, right? And I think he got what he wanted from it, and that's the main thing, right?
I love this. This is incredible. You should.
Everyone who's been hammering Pokemon knows.
I want this as a fucking poster, dude.
It's good, man.
The back of my fucking phone screen is I don't know if you can see that.
Squirrel.
I've got a squirrel.
Legit.
Like the Pokemon Go like stats for the other stuff.
I've been playing Pokemon. What's the new Pokemon? Sword? Is it Sword? Yeah. I've been playing that on the Switch. That's been my prep.
I've got a Switch, right, and I've barely fucking touched it in the past.
Yeah.
Like what was the stuff? I was playing like Super Smash on it for ages, and then also
you got to get on the Zelda.
Yes, I do.
Zelda Breath of the Wild. That is probably one of the best games I've ever played.
Comes out before the next one comes out for sure.
100%. It's so good. And then watch Austin John plays on YouTube, and he tells you like how to get like the Elder Sword or whatever the hell it's called.
My friend is big into Zelda, and he always shows me the stupid videos of people just basically fucking like hacking the game with all the people doing it. So like balls like into the castle and stuff, like from across the map, just dumb stuff. Here's another great meme with.
This was easy, man. Like I didn't.
Fucking great.
I don't even watch Marvel or any of these films, so like I had this meme I created. Like I have no idea what this guy's going on about, but I figured, well, everyone I think knows Thanos or they watch, Marvel, so I thought I'd do a meme on it. But I actually have no idea what he's on about.
This must be what a lot of the people at like marketing companies for big business are like. They're like, yeah, I know nothing about this, but people like it. Like,
yeah,
let's put this in.
Yeah, I mean that's the main thing is right. People like you gotta attract someone in, right? To reading the caption or whatever. A lot of people just put picture like the old school is like people attract you through like their ass or their muscles or whatever, right? And now I think you got to do it through a different avenue. I try to use the humor side of things to attract people in, and go off it that way, and then people actually then tend to read it, right?
Oh, for sure. This shit, I follow this shit. This shit's funny to me. I like reading these things, and like a lot of the time they echo a lot of things that I tell people who I coach or I have coached. They echo like having a client who's like been losing weight for like 8 weeks and is having a meltdown every time they like go over by like 20 cows or something over the course of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. For fuck's sake.
See, again, I have no idea where this lady is from, like, but I saw like there's been loads of memes on it, and I was like, this is pretty good. Let me take that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dragon Ball Z, we know that for sure. Only I look that shredded on stage.
The quads are actually accurate for you.
Not the calves, though.
Yeah,
let's say the calves. Or the tail.
Or the tail, of course.
Yeah. Or vagina.
Or just a blank sheet.
Yeah.
I want to be like this on stage with cannonball delts.
And massive traps.
Just...
Waist is a bit wide, but
it is. But hey, look, no neck, all trap. I'm all for it.
For sure.
Some of these are fucking hysterical, man.
That was a good one.
You come up with this. It's got nerdy.
Yeah.
Genius. Yeah.
People know the party guys. They'll know about that.
Some of these are fucking out there, man. This is almost a meme page.
Basically, yeah.
It's
That's a good one, right? Yeah. Everyone knows that.
That is a great one. Does the weather affect your goals? That is a question, actually. Do you find that if you were like, have you ever found it that you drop weight, or like you could keep your calories the same for a very long time, and it could go from like being very cold to being 30 degrees like it has this past month, and you just drop weight based on that thermogenesis? Like, do you find that at all, or is that something that you account for at all in your coaching?
No, I don't. For me personally, myself, that doesn't happen. My body is stubborn as hell, and it takes, like, I have to go into quite a big of a deficit to drop body fat, and I think a lot of people will be shocked by the numbers that I rack up when I eat my food, and when I go, like, when I start my diet. I think George Osborne always said, like, he finishes prep on 2,500 calories, right?
Yeah.
I start prep on 2,500.
I think I'm kind of similar, honestly.
Right.
It takes a bit more. I think it's more the initial part of the prep takes more than the actual end of the prep does. Like
mine just keeps going down, man.
Down.
Yeah.
I'm like pretty much there. I'm pretty much there. Like,
yeah.
And I could arguably raise food again, really.
Like, I realistically, for my body, like, I didn't even need like refeeds, but the refeeds are the only thing that allows me to stay adherent, because my calories have to go so low. Like, I'm like basically doing bikini diets, you know what I mean? Super high step count, but you know, I know guys that don't come on stage with as much muscle as me, but they can eat twice as much food. So I think ultimately it doesn't really matter where you are, right? You got to do what you got to do to get on stage, right? And compete and be competitive.
I spoke to someone about that recently as well, where I think it might have been Tim. I don't know if you know Tim Stewart, but at one point in the past couple of months, I remember we had that conversation of us being like, it doesn't ultimately matter what food you're on. It doesn't matter what your scale weight is. None of that shit really matters. It's what you are on stage.
Yeah.
Like, and the end result, right? So like, you being on, let's say, Bikini Girl 1,500 calories or whatever, but hey, look, you're looking like this and you're winning. So you know what
I mean, you say that, but then, you know, I would definitely like to have a bit more calories. That would be nice. You know,
when you're there, right? You're there. Like,
of course, like, if I could diet on 2,000 calories, would I take it? 100%, yes. Do you know what I mean?
I spoke to George about it as well, where like that was the thing at one point with George. He was on like 3,000 plus calories and he was show lean, and he still felt the same way that you or I would feel being on much lower food.
I don't know. I just, like, for me, I'm still like, you still have more to play with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you could still fit a Pop-Tart in, or you could still fit a Squares bar in. I cannot do that with 1,600 calories. Do you know what I mean? There's just like, even vegetables is like a higher percentage of carbohydrate than, you know, for you. Obviously, you know, you probably still will feel hard, like you feel tired, but you know, it's still relative, right? It's still an absolute. It's like, you know, doing Wilks with powerlifting, you know, a 400 kilo deadlift for a 100 kilo person versus 300 kilo deadlift for a 75 kilo person. Sure, they're still 4 times body weight and they're equally as hard, but 400 is still 400. The absolute weight is still more. And it's the same with calories. But that's just coming from me, right? So that's why I'm a bit bitter about it.
One thing that I noticed in prep, I think it's also the mentality, though, what I had in my last prep. To be fair, I was very much like, and this ended up being my downfall in my last prep, was I had a Rocky mentality. I was like, if AJ told me to do something, I would have questions, of course, and I'd ask them if they're like objectively good questions to ask. But it was very much like, yes,
do first, ask after.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was that like drill sergeant, like to the recruit, like
that's the first prep mentality, man. Yeah. I had that as well.
Yeah. I think as a result of that, I was like 1,600 calories, 1,500 calories. Yeah, whatever. Like I think that is, again, like you say, down to a first prep mentality. And Like I imagine, no doubt this time, and it seems to be the case from what AJ said to me a couple of weeks ago, that he was like, yeah, higher food this time around. You're starting on higher food, which is like completely understandable, right? And at the end of the day, I do get it. Like from a coaching perspective, you then have more to play with, for sure. Like there's more that you can actually do with that, as opposed to just pull more food. Like, you know,
At some point, it's gonna have to go.
yeah.
Eventually, it always does. Doesn't matter how long you delay that process. You know, at some point, you're gonna have to dig hard, and everyone has to work right for it. Yeah, that's the hardest part, prep, right? I think that's where most people struggle with.
Is there anything you do for people at home, and like even for me, is there anything that you do like in your head, like mental math, to try and make that easier for yourself?
So I think it's more so for me, it's just like that sense of, you know, when you finish a meal and you don't really feel fully satisfied. I think that's like the worst feeling in prep. So for me, like recently I've just switched it from 4 meals a day to 3, just to reduce the kind of feeling. And at some point, you know, sure, optimal, you know, is 4 times, but or 4 or 5 times, but you just have, like, it still comes down to adherence. If I do 4 times and it makes me binge, then fuck, then I'm doing 3, man. I'm doing whatever it takes for me to stay on track. You know what I mean? And yeah, at some point it just has to be. It doesn't have to be, you know, perfect what's on paper. It just has to be doable.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's key. I think a lot of people try to fit themselves into doing this optimal thing, like we spoke about before. But it just needs to be doable, man. It doesn't have to be, you know, the best thing on paper. Sure, maybe you might get a better look, but you know, that doesn't matter if you can't follow it. And that's why the bottom of the pyramid is always adherence, right? That's the biggest part. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then aside from that, you know, AJ's been speaking a lot about structure and, you know, your routine in your day to day and reducing and mitigating your stress. That's definitely a big part of, you know, why people can't adhere to diets, is because their structure and their routine and what they do on a day to day is not, you know, they don't have their ducks aligned. And I definitely think that's a huge one for Gen Pop, as to why they get triggered.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a female client who is now on baseline volume in terms of training, like 1 set for a lot of exercises. That's not necessarily because she's lifting massively heavy load or anything. She's not, but she's been dieting for a while now. And because of other factors like hormone levels and stuff, and
sleep and whatnot, right? You never know.
Looking at those sort of things, that is now more optimal, and there's more progress being made off of less. And that's because recovery and stress has been mitigated, you know. So, and that's a thing that a lot of people, coaches as well, can't wrap their heads around a lot of the time as well. A lot of people will just, like, you see a lot with PTs, right? They'll be like, here's a diet plan for their clients. Here's some training. We'll do this training stuff, and we'll go balls to the walls hard while we're training. And you just follow this diet plan and nothing changes outside of that. And that's like such a backwards approach. Like the body isn't like linear. It never follows. Even for men, like we don't have menstrual cycles or anything, but how the body functions.
I don't know. I feel like I do now. I'm at that point of prep, you know, where your test levels are so low. I feel like I'm bleeding all the time.
It is like that, like where I just think a lot of people ignore the basic understanding of like some things in human biology like that. Like that is, for me, there's adherence, there's the actual training, diet, sleep, and biofeedback. But a lot of the stuff that comes under that and is eventually covered in that revolves around recovery and the stress mitigation, for sure.
Yeah. But those are the triggers, right, as to why people binge and why people
Absolutely.
can't stick to their diet. It's not necessarily because certain factors, like they're not managing their life properly, right? They're not managing. It's like, I can't go out to do my steps or whatever. It's because you're sitting on your phone all day, or we have it all the time, right? You get clients where they're like, oh, I can't go out to do my steps, and you look at their screen time and they're doing 8 hours on Instagram, and it's like, well, in those 8 hours you couldn't have done 10,000 steps. 100% you could have, man. But because your routine is, I want to sit on the couch playing, on my phone, or a lot of times people are like, I can't progress in the gym because you sleep 6 hours or you sleep 5 hours. And why do you sleep 5 hours? Because the night before I decided to watch 10 episodes on Suits on Netflix, and it's like, yeah, that's your answer. Why don't you just watch 5?
Yeah,
That kind of thing. And a lot of things it's very simple, but
this is
people
why
overlook it.
I think bodybuilders right now and bodybuilding culture revolves around podcasts a lot. Like, guarantee, calling all you people listening and watching out, a lot of the people who are listening to this are walking, doing steps right now, or not like a stairmaster doing cardio. It's that constant like thing that they can be doing, like almost like a distraction, while also taking something away from it, and like, actually being able to continue to accomplish what they need to accomplish. Like,
Yeah,
I 100% didn't really listen to podcasts until I started prepping in 2019.
for sure, man. I think in 2019 I listened to every single one of 3DMJ's podcasts.
Yeah, man.
Like, from way back, like, even I think some of the episodes get deleted, and I was going on YouTube to watch them.
Damn, bro.
That's how badly I was like just caning their podcast. But I learned so much on that prep, just about everything. And yeah, I think a lot of my education does come from podcasts as much as anything else.
A lot of principles that I eventually was able to apply and use on my degree, because my degree is in strength conditioning, sports nutrition. A lot of that stuff actually for sure came from just me going on walks and educating myself to move, and doing that. Like, that's a huge thing. And actually, like, listening to what's going on, even stuff like Fuad's podcast. Like, I started listening to that when it first started, way back in like 2019 or whatever it was.
That's so good, right? I love that podcast.
That podcast is like, I remember it was the night before like my first show. I had my first few coats of tan on, and I was sat in my room on my chair on a black towel, of course, because you code in tan in your room, and I was just listening to Fuad's podcast. I was just watching it on my computer. And it was that routine, because that was like the routine that I got myself into for so long. That's what like me de-stressing and chilling out for that peak week was a lot of the time. Yeah. So
I think still one of my favorites was always the size game, man. I watched that. I listened to that like way back.
Yeah, I think I caught the back end of that more so.
Yeah.
Like, I was very much aware of it, listened to a few of them. And that's why I knew people like James or whatever, or people from, it was from like that kind of scene. So when they came on to Fuad, I was like, yes, finally, this is it.
Yeah, because we were missing that, right? Because they were doing the size game, and I think originally it was just Banji and James.
Yeah.
And then they brought on Luke, and then later Jamie went on, right? But that podcast was hilarious. It was so good, and that was even before Luke and James were even pros.
Yeah, way.
Like, they were the OG podcast. Like, I'm telling you, they're OG like bodybuilding podcasts.
If any of the people listening to this are looking for another one to fill a void or fill a gap, that's the one right there. Size
100%, so good. It's still all up there. Yeah, the OG. You can't beat it.
Well, I think it's time we probably wrap this up. It's been like almost 2 hours, dude.
Has it really?
We go for ages, bro.
Damn, man.
Let's wrap it up though with anything you want to talk about, anything you want to cover right now. Do you shout out socials, anything like that as well? Go for it.
Yeah, nothing really much other than if you're interested like in any coaching or anything like that, obviously my Instagram is always the first point of call. Link in the bio for applications, and also any questions or anything. Yeah, feel free to always drop me a message, man. I'm always on there speaking to people.
Good shit. Same goes for me, guys. You know how it is. Jermaine Sully on Instagram. Shoot me messages for coaching, any questions, podcast related stuff. Let me know what your lineups are, what are your top fives for pro shows, because we'll cover probably some of that stuff at a review on Stage Talk. Hymsuen, thank you for coming on, man.
No problem. It's been an absolute pleasure, man.
I might even ask you on again at some point soon. Maybe get you on with like another guest or something. That could be fun.
Cool, man. Sounds great.
Maybe when you're like not prepping and not so like fucked.
Do an end of season wrap up.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe that'll be the move once you've like won the Brits or something. You know? Let's stop sharing screen. All right. Thank you guys for listening to and watching the Off the Script podcast with myself and Hymsuen. If I'm trying to think, we'll probably get this up probably on Saturday, maybe something like that. Probably
quick turnover.
Yeah, we'll try and get it done quick. Depends how quick thumbnails are done. We'll see. Joe will get on that. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.